I started the year vice mayor of the city. I was married to the congressman. We were having a baby and I had my parents here to help me. And then so much of my life just fell upside down all at once. So I originally decided I couldn't run for mayor, that people would be skeptical of a young woman with an infant and no husband in one of these roles. My divorce was fairly public. I felt like everywhere I went, people were sort of looking at me and judging and interested. There were a group of wonderful individuals, mostly women, who said, "We want to help you. You're the most qualified. You shouldn't let this divorce and motherhood be the reason you don't do this."
Hi, everyone, and welcome to How She Does It, where dynamic leaders share their stories of pursuing excellence, and we ask them how they do it. I'm Karen Finerman, and when I'm not having these great conversations, you can find me at my day job. I'm a long-term Wall Street investor. I'm also on the panel at CNBC's Fast Money, and I love attending WNBA games. I'm a busy person. My husband and I have 4 kids, and I have worked nonstop my whole adult life. It seemed like a lot until I heard Kate Gallego's story. Imagine working diligently at your career, becoming pregnant, and then your marriage breaks up. And not too long afterwards, your dream job becomes available. What would you do? In Kate Gallego's case, that dream job was the mayor of Phoenix, the country's 5th largest city. Being the mayor is a demanding and very public-facing role, and understandably, she hesitated. But ultimately, she threw her hat in the ring, and after a runoff election, she won. She's since been elected 2 more times and is now in her final term. I first met Mayor Gallego at the CNBC Changemakers event earlier this year, and I'm so excited to share more of her story with you. We chatted about why she ultimately decided to run for mayor despite all the changes in her life, how she's future-proofing her city, and what advice she gives other women who want to get into politics or make any big leap. I hope you enjoy our conversation. Mayor Kate Gallego, thank you so much for coming. Welcome to How She Does It.
Thanks so much for having me.
All right, I got a lot to get to, so let me just jump right in. You have said, "I was raised with the sense that government could really get things done and help people solve problems," which unfortunately is a message that's not getting through to everyone today. When in your life did public service become of interest to you?
I come from a family that believed in giving back, that you volunteered on nonprofits or that you showed up to community meetings to talk about what you'd like to see in your neighborhood. Some of my earliest memories are helping plant a park and getting involved in tree planting near my home and just really feeling like when we work together, we're all better off. I think that's really helpful in local government. I'm a big believer that the city can make us safer, healthier, provide great services, and that is an increasingly rare perspective, that by working together, we are better off. But we've done some big things in Phoenix, and I think that sense that individuals working together can get big things done has served me well.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, so going back a little bit, so you studied environmental science and public policy at Harvard. You have an MBA from Wharton that sort of prepares you to do a lot. Did you ever feel like a different path was calling you? Did you ever think about doing something more lucrative than public service?
When I got my MBA, I had hoped to be an entrepreneur. I was expecting to go into clean tech. I live in Arizona. The sunniest big city in the country is Phoenix. And so I thought I might go in that area. But I started volunteering at the city and boards and commissions, the Environmental Commission and then a planning commission, and really felt like we were making such a big difference. It was so rewarding and that I could accomplish so much more by being involved with local government. But I had a ton of student loan debt and maybe wouldn't have taken that on necessarily if I'd understood I was going into local government. Although an MBA has turned out to be a wonderful background. You get involved in negotiating deals on behalf of your residents. You have to understand things like supply chain. Like, I was a mayor during COVID, so who would have thought supply chain would be as big of a deal as it ended up being? But all of that really prepared me well to go in this direction. But I am, like most of the women you've had on, not someone who had a linear career path. I definitely did not grow up thinking I would be a mayor. I was quite introverted growing up. Like I used to do theater in high school, but I did the tech stuff behind the scenes because I didn't want to be on stage. So people from certain parts of my life, I think, are very surprised that I ended up in this type of a role.
It makes perfect sense that a mayor would find great use in a business background. Did you have any role models? Was there anyone doing this that you thought, yeah, that's how I want to lead?
So my second job out of college, I worked for Governor Janet Napolitano. Many people know her as Homeland Security Secretary, but she was our governor in Arizona and was a wonderful mentor. She was very focused on getting things done and very no nonsense, but data-driven, showed up prepared. And she's been a role model and then a mentor as well. You know, as I've run, she's helped me along the way, and it's been fabulous that she's still paying it forward at this stage in her career.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I want to get to something I just found so fascinating. Okay, you're serving on the city council. You have two very big upheavals in your life at the same time. You become pregnant after trying for a long time, and at the same time, your marriage ends. So you did what any woman would do. You run for mayor. How did you make that choice?
It was a very difficult decision for me. My predecessor in the mayor's office had announced he was running for Congress, so the seat was open unexpectedly. I had been interested, but it really felt like the wrong time for me. At that same time period, my mother, who was super important to me, was diagnosed with late-stage cancer. And so, I started the year vice mayor of the city. I was married to the congressman. We were having a baby, and I had my parents here to help me. And then so much of my life just fell upside down all at once. So I originally decided I couldn't run for mayor, that people would be skeptical of a young woman with an infant and no husband in one of these roles. Mm-hmm. At the time, none of the 15 largest cities had a female mayor. And I just thought, to the extent women run, they're usually at the end of their career for these executive positions. My divorce was fairly public. I felt like everywhere I went, people were sort of looking at me and judging and interested. As time went on and I started sleeping through the night with the baby, I got a little bit more perspective. And there were a group of wonderful individuals, mostly women, who said, we want to help you. You're the most qualified. You shouldn't let this divorce and motherhood be the reason you don't do this. And so I eventually did end up changing my mind and going for it. I got into the race pretty late, so that was difficult. But through hard work, I was able to move forward and get it done. We had a lot of debates with the campaign team about how to talk about my personal situation.
Yeah, what'd you decide? How do you talk about it?
So some of the advice I got was have my parents in the TV commercials and say, we're going to help her with childcare. In the end, we did not do that, but we did put my son in the commercials, and I talked about wanting to build a better Phoenix for his future and some of the juggles of parenthood. And it turned out it resonated with a lot of people. Even if you didn't have an infant, so many people were juggling with something in their personal life, care of a parent or care of a spouse. What I thought was going to be a really big impediment for me just reminded a lot of voters of what we had in common and that we're all juggling. So I hope I can take advantage of that. I always wondered, does it make a difference to have a working mom in these roles? And I'm hoping when I leave this office, I can say, yes, it did. And we made life easier for other working parents.
Oh, I would think so for sure. You've also talked in the past about being embarrassed about the divorce. And yet you talked about that. Did you get comfortable with that? And did that also sort of resonate with voters?
Well, I was very embarrassed to get divorced while pregnant. At the time, I wasn't aware of anyone else going through that, although since have realized that a pregnancy is pretty stressful and it's one of the moments that is really hard on relationships. But it was a very public, what it felt like to me was a public failure. And so you're asking for a promotion while you're in the middle of a big public failure. That's hard and stressful. I was under the impression that people wanted mayors who were perfect and had everything right. But it turned out the people in Phoenix are pretty sophisticated and they know there's no one who has everything right. And I think they're more interested in someone who can make life better and sees problems and solves them. And it's funny, I was such in my bubble that I thought everyone was focused on me, but all the time people will come up to me and be like, how's your husband? I don't have a husband.
I hope he's well, but I don't know where he is.
Right.
Okay, so you win. You're 37 years old. Were you surprised, or did you sort of know as it's going along, you know what, I'm going to win?
A campaign is sort of like a startup. You got to get hire and scale and talk to as many people as you can. I spent so much time in the day-to-day that it felt good, but you never know till election day what the real results are. So it was a really exciting milestone for me. I won an 18-month term, so I went through this period of my life where I had a baby in 2017, ran for office in 2018, had another election in 2019, and another election in 2020. So it was a tumultuous time to be a mom and a public servant. But I think it makes me stronger.
You're not innately an extrovert, and yet here you are running again and again and again in a forum where extroverts thrive. Did you have to force yourself to be more outgoing than you wanted?
I am happier with smaller groups, but like a big group of people I don't know is harder for me. So I definitely have strategies where I try to make sure there are some people I know who might be able to introduce me to other folks, and then I try to make it feel more like a smaller group, because it is hard to go in a room where there's 100 people and you don't know one of them and try to make a good impression and get to know people. So that definitely takes some work.
I mean, you go in a room now with 100 people, they all know who you are. Does it get easier?
Phoenix in some ways like the world's biggest small town, so there are a lot of connections now, and it'd be very unusual for me to go out in the community and not have some friends present. So that's been nice. The whole process of running for office makes sure that you're in touch with all of your friends in a way that I think we all aspire to be. But now I have like a reason and a deadline to talk to folks. And so I feel like sometimes I'm the one who's in touch with like the biggest geography of my high school friends. So in some ways it's deepened social connections, and that's helped make it more fun on the social side.
So you talked about Michael, your son, who I believe is 8 right now, but was a toddler at the time. And how did you make that work?
I had a wonderful support system. There were several individuals, many women, who said, we're going to make sure you can do a great job being a mom and running for mayor. And so sometimes they would volunteer for my campaign by spending time with my son while I was able to do phone calls or other campaigning. So I was the first Phoenix elected official to give birth while holding office. And this was before the pandemic. So, calling into meetings was a little bit less common, but sometimes you were breastfeeding in the middle of a city council meeting and you hoped you turn mute off at an appropriate time so no one heard any more noise than they wanted to.
Okay, so now you're in your final term as mayor. So how are you a better leader today than you were when you started?
I think I'm much better about listening to other people and thinking through what my decisions, how people will be impacted, and planning ahead better. I have a great city council right now, and I think I have a much better understanding. We are all more successful when we work together, that a strong team is much better than an individual. When I was first elected, I felt like a lot of pressure to perform myself. And now I feel like I am much more collaborative. I've also taken some of the tougher moments in my life and tried to turn them into solutions to make the city a better city. Some of that is super micro, so it's much easier now to nurse your baby at Phoenix Sky Harbor Airport or the Phoenix Convention Center, because we're now building with the whole life cycle in mind, including spaces for nursing moms. We've expanded family leave so that we have a much more generous family leave for both mom and dads. And we're doing a lot of investments in healthcare that I often trace to my really tough experience with my mom.
Yeah, tell us more about that, because I've read some about it and how you wanted to transform Phoenix, but tell us about that.
So I was very close to my mom. Growing up, I played a lot of softball and aspired to be a pitcher, so she spent hours in the backyard with me, catching me and going to tournaments. She was a very accomplished attorney in her own right, but really made me feel like the center of her universe. She was the one holding my hand when I gave birth, so many important milestones. She was so key. She had felt sick for several years, and her doctors had said, oh, you're just getting older. It's nothing. And then finally, the Mayo Clinic in Phoenix had diagnosed her with late-stage cancer. If the doctors had listened to her earlier, I think it might have been a much easier treatment pattern. She got wonderful care here, but there hit a point when the team in Phoenix said to get the next level of care, you got to go to Houston. We just don't have that here. And that's really hard to hear. For most people, it's not possible to travel while you have a rough diagnosis like late stage cancer. And even if it is, it's just hard. You want to be with your grandkids and your dog and your home. So I've been trying to work so that fewer families have to hear that in the future. We are investing city dollars in partnerships with Arizona State University. We're going to build a new medical school focused on advanced technology. We've been able to bring a huge number of healthcare investments, from a close to $2 billion Mayo expansion to really trying to support startups. We now have a wonderful cluster of tech companies that are trying to help create a healthier environment, including for women. So we're hopeful to be a real hub for what we often call femtech, companies that really support unique women's health needs. And again, I hope this all is paying it forward so that other people can have earlier diagnosis, better tools. My mom tried to have fun when she was going through losing her hair and all of those tough things, but it's miserable. She let my son get markers and color her hair and tried to have a sense of humor, but it feels like, little signs of death. And it's those side effects from cancer treatment are so, so awful. So we hope to support companies that are trying to find the path to cure cancer. And it's my hope that that path will go through Phoenix.
Okay, I want to switch gears on another very large project in Phoenix, the Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company. So correct me if I'm wrong, but I think both the Biden and Trump administration felt that the importance of reshoring this type of manufacturing in the U.S. was absolutely critical. Can you explain why that is so critical and what that means for Phoenix, but also what it means for national security and the scale of this project?
Absolutely. So semiconductors are the brains in our smartwatches, our cell phones, but they're also the technology that powers defense systems, airplanes, cars. A few years ago, we didn't make any of the most advanced chips in the United States. There was bipartisan agreement that that was a real challenge. They were disproportionately made in Taiwan. Today, the most advanced chips are made in Phoenix, Arizona, and that is a really big deal for our country's safety. The relationship between China and Taiwan, complex. No one country should have so much of the world's advanced technology. It's a much safer system for all of us if we have a diverse supply chain. We all learned that during COVID. And it's a really big deal for me that Phoenix is part of this future. The investment in Phoenix is the largest foreign direct investment in our country history, $165 billion. The semiconductor plant is like a small city. The scale is sort of hard to describe, particularly to someone in New York, but we're not landlocked, no islands here. And so we did have the ability to build really significant number of fabrication facilities.
So this all happened on your watch?
My first international trip as mayor was to go to Taiwan to recruit TSMC. We'd secured a 30-minute meeting. It turned into an hour and a half, and we were able to talk about why Phoenix. As you mentioned, I have a weird background for a mayor. The MBA is a little bit unusual, and I had worked in the electric utility and water side. All of that came in very handy when we were pitching TSMC about what it would be like to do business here. I went over for my birthday. It was a really fun time to be gone, and they had heard Americans really like sugar, and so I got extra frosting on my cake.
Yeah.
Yes.
Extra frosting on the cake. Well, how does one implement a project this enormous?
The scale is really hard to explain. It has really been an all hands on deck challenge for us. Our school districts have stepped up, our community college and universities, to make sure that we have the workforce. A lot of this technology has never been used in the United States before, so you can't just hire the last team that did it. It feels a little bit like magic how much they can put on one tiny chip, and it's really neat that our residents get these jobs. I met a young woman who'd been working in fast food and as a CNA, now a semiconductor tech, life-changing increase in income. And frankly, semiconductors are in everything now. So we feel like it's a good industry and expertise for us to have in Phoenix, really helping diversify the opportunities that are out here and hopefully leaving us well positioned for the future. Our dumpling game in the city of Phoenix is dramatically improving. Our boba tea game, dramatically improving. We just got nonstop airline service to Taiwan. It's really made us more globally connected.
Okay. You're in a job where you'll never please everyone. So what's your advice for women, no matter the line of work that they're in, on building consensus and managing people who don't agree with you?
I think it's important to hear from people who don't agree. So when I push forward a policy that is a little tougher, I have a lot more meetings, and I think that is valuable. But there are times when you just have to make a decision and there's a lot of uncertainty. You take what information you have. I try to explain to our residents what I'm looking at when I make the decision. And then sometimes you just have to jump.
Do you think you deal with men any differently than you deal with women who disagree with you?
So mostly it's been a really positive experience for me. There was a time when women's clothes was constantly analyzed and their hair. And I find most of the engagement I have is really more substantive. So I think we've made some progress in that area. I am lucky to be in Arizona where you have had multiple female governors succeed each other. A lot of our state elected officials are women. You know, New York has never had a female mayor, but we have had multiple. And so I think that has helped. People like Janet Napolitano pave the way for me so I don't get asked about gender as often as a generation ago people did. But there's certainly times when I will arrive with a member of my detective detail who's a police officer and male, and they think that guy's the mayor and not me.
So what were some of your most difficult moments as mayor?
We had a lot of public safety challenges. COVID hit at the end of my first year as mayor, so that's a rough rookie year. We had one of the first 5 cases in the country, and that was a time where there was no playbook at all, but you have, hospital CEOs calling and saying, you've got to give us a chance. Lots of community activism on all sides of the issues. So probably COVID was definitely, I think, the most difficult to navigate.
So do you call Janet Napolitano? What does she tell you to sort of lift your spirits, or advice that she gives you that really sticks in your head?
She is a wealth of great stories about crazy situations. She navigated things like a prison standoff where it is about as acute as it can be. And now she's able to tell the stories and laugh at things that were incredibly stressful at the time. But once you get through it and get people out safely, you maybe have a little bit more perspective. I think the more crises you go through, the more you're able to see bigger picture about how to prepare for the next challenge. Because in a big city, they come every day.
Okay, so I don't need to tell you how rancorous and sadly sometimes dangerous public office can be. So what do you say to encourage qualified, bright people to seek elective office?
For me, it was helpful to try things out. I started as a volunteer on boards and commissions, and that you got to see how the process worked. So I think that is a nice way to test the waters. When people are considering running, I always encourage people to volunteer on other campaigns. That helps you get perspective. You'll learn the highs are higher and the lows are lower, and that is just part of the process. If you want even-keeled, predictable, campaigns are probably not the life path for you. But the impact can be wonderful. People want the city to succeed, and they work with me to try to make that happen. And just, I feel like I've been blessed to be present to help Phoenix become a much more diverse and advanced economy, much more sustainable. I do think I'm leaving the city in a better position for the next generation, but also the people who live here today. And that's incredibly rewarding. I was one of those little girls who grew up playing a game called Sim City, where you design your own city. And now I get to think that way, but on a much larger and more important scale. So it's a dream job.
They didn't have Sim City, Taiwan any kind of semiconductor manufacturing resources back in the day of Sim City, I think. Is that right?
They did have factories. It was not quite clear what the factories made.
Okay.
You had to not put them next to the neighborhoods and make sure they had enough water and firefighters. So it was very simple, but in some ways...
It seems like an outstanding game for you. I mean, who is better to play Sim City than you.
There's now an element of the game where you bring disasters on your city to get more points, and I just can't do it.
Okay, I get it. I get it.
I got
The
an
karma of
8-year-old,
that.
so I play with him.
So, okay, now your 8-year-old, you are the mayor. His father is the senator of Arizona, Gallego. How do you guys co-parent? You both have very busy lives, I would imagine. How do you work that out?
It is very complicated. We're both in positions where you're not in complete control of your schedule. If there is a flood in Phoenix, that is what I am doing. The vote schedule in D.C. leaves a lot of uncertainty. If the Congress hasn't passed a budget, they stay until they do. And so try planning your life around.
I got to get a sitter. We're trying to pass the budget. Okay. All right. So I got to ask this. This is your last term as mayor. You can't run again. You do have a few years left. I'll just tell you, I look at you and what I see, and you can comment as you like. Someone who has very successfully managed a very big city, who is very well qualified on paper and in practice, who's young, energetic, likable. How can a much bigger national office not be in your sights?
The future is really exciting for me. I'm blessed that I have close to 4 years left in this term, so I don't feel pressured to figure out what's next. There has been so much change in public service.
Is that change good or bad or both?
Well, to go where we started, I feel like people aren't quite as confident that government can get big things done. And so as we're transforming Phoenix's economy, particularly on the healthcare side and the advanced tech, I'm hoping to use that as an argument that when business works with universities, local government, state government, we can do really big things together that leave us all better off. But it's certainly a real debate we're having. For me, I'm very results oriented, and so I want to see how we can make things better, and that's a really important way to measure success. But you got to get things done, and you have to have the support of your residents to do that. I am lucky our Phoenix voters approved our 10-year plan with 79% support. That's really unusual. But it did feel like it, gave us space and permission to aim high and to get things done. And so as long as I can keep doing this, it's very rewarding.
One of the things I know you've planned in your city or worked with is the weather. And, it's Phoenix, it's super hot. And you've had some really interesting initiatives to address that. Can you just tell me a little bit more about those?
Absolutely. So Phoenix is the sunniest big city in the country. That has many upsides. We train many of the world's pilots in Arizona because we got wide open space and beautiful skies. It's a great training environment. We have a big solar energy industry that's powered by the sun. We're the largest autonomous vehicle zone in the world, in part because we have great weather conditions for that technology. So many benefits of that technology. I do not miss shoveling snow or slipping on ice for a second. But in the summer, we have very high temperatures, and that is a growing challenge. We are the first city in the country to have an office that thinks about heat year-round and plans for solutions. That's shown up in a variety of different ways. Right now, we're really trying to change building codes to make sure that we create public spaces that are shaded so you can walk around in downtown under the shade. We don't have a lot of humidity, so shade makes a big difference. We're changing our public art and are now trying to build beautiful shade structures. Phoenix has a killer name for a city. We are named for the mythical bird that rose from the ashes, so you can do a lot of great shade and public art with that. We're looking at the colors we paint our city streets. We now have a lighter colored cooling because black asphalt keeps heat overnight, and we don't need that. So we really are trying to rethink the city to be more comfortable in a warming environment. We're also doing the traditional things to reduce our emissions, efficient buildings, more solar, but we're a leader on adaptation. How can we adapt to a warming planet? And so we've had people from 6 continents come and study what we're doing to prepare for warming. No one from Antarctica yet. They do not seem to be as worried about that particular issue.
Okay. Mayor Gallego, it is time for a lightning round. So we have some fun questions for you. A few would you rather, a few sort of open-ended. So all I ask is that you just give us the first answer that pops into your head. You ready?
Sounds great.
Would you rather be front row at a Phoenix Mercury game or front row for the NCAA Women's Final Four coming up next year in Phoenix?
I am very pumped for the Final Four. So I'm trying to get Arizona State to let me be a guest coach for the women's basketball team.
Okay. All right. You were a Girl Scout?
I was.
Would you rather Thin Mints or Samoas?
Thin Mints.
Yes, a popular answer for sure. Would you rather be moved or laugh uncontrollably?
Be moved.
Okay. Super Bowl 57, which you hosted, did you prefer the game or the halftime show with Rihanna on the platform 50 feet above the field?
She was incredible. I wasn't there live, so the game I watched, we did a big watch party at our city park, which was the largest watch party in history, and that was pretty incredible.
Okay, so the game itself.
I'm going with the game.
All right, you're a sportswoman, I know. A pitcher.
Softball was my love.
So what did you learn from all those years playing softball?
Softball was wonderful for me. I did the traveling league when you're spending a ton of time in a car together. Those friendships become pretty deep. So listening to teammates, we all had good games and we all had bad games, and we were much stronger if you supported people through the ups and downs and really had a common vision together. And the same is true of teams at the city council or doing a major project. So sports really prepares people for leadership.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Okay, so would you rather watch the Diamondbacks play or step up to the pitching mound yourself in a softball game?
Well, we came very close to a World Series win, which was incredible. But I love playing myself and just being out with friends.
Okay. Would you rather campaign for yourself or campaign for someone else?
Campaign for someone else, definitely.
Okay. The best piece of leadership advice you've ever received?
To not wait until everything is perfect in your life and just go for it, because your life's never going to be perfect.
Okay. Would you rather have a mountain hike or a spa day?
I love hiking. We have more acres of parks in Phoenix than any other city, so the mountains are my place.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Is there anything you've changed your mind about in the last year?
Well, I am a mom of an 8-year-old, so constant growth in that area. I've been talked into a lot of activities for him that I never would have.
Like which one?
He loves climbing, like at the climbing gym. And, as a mother, you might want him to be like a little bit safer and on the ground. But just now I love, he flies up the courses, and I now love watching him. So at my current age, first time ever climbing on an open mountain, like on belay, it was like a little bit of a growth opportunity for me, pushed by an 8-year-old, but I did it.
Okay, good for you. What is your best time management strategy?
I get up before my son does and try to get exercise done and get set and planned for the day.
And so what time do you wake up? What time do you go to bed?
So I go to bed pretty early and then get up at 5:30.
Okay.
So I always wake up to like a bazillion text messages that people sent at 10 o'clock at night when I was asleep. Because they assume no adult would be asleep at 10.
Of course.
But I am.
Whatever works for you. Okay. So last one, 2 parts. What's the best investment you've ever made and the worst investment you've ever made? And a very loose definition of investment could be anything.
So I, being interested in climate change, made some good financial investments in ESG funds that were very heavy in tech and did very well financially. So that turned out to be doing good by doing well.
That's a Wharton woman.
And then I bought my first home in October 2008 in Phoenix, the single month peak of our housing market. So I didn't build equity for a single month, and the value just took a dive. That might be the single worst investment I've ever made, but it probably changed my life. I think that's one of the reasons I'm so interested in a more diverse economy. Phoenix was so dependent on real estate as a business sector, and I am now working to make sure we have a few other options in our economy.
And you've really succeeded. It's spectacular. All right. That was it. Thank you so much for your time.
Awesome. Well, thanks for having me.
Thanks again, Mayor Gallego. And thank you so much for taking time to listen to our conversation on how she does it.